All right, hello everyone. Welcome to your DAW Introduction project. I'm Mr. Price. I'm going to be walking you through the project today. This is the first in a series of projects we're going to be doing, and this one's really just to get you introduced to our DAW, which is called Logic Pro, made by Apple. It's the one we'll be using. So here is the project file that you should have in front of you. And just so you know, what we are trying to accomplish by the end of this is getting this .logicx file of a completed project finished. So I'm just going to really quickly walk you through all the steps. Now, this is probably going to take you longer than the length of this video, but the whole idea is that I'm going to walk you through the steps very quickly, and you can come back and look at this in the future if you need extra walkthroughs of it later. You can come back and get more help. So just really quickly to walk you through the project itself, and then we'll get into it and I'll show you how to do it. We're going to learn all the basic controls in Logic Pro. By the end of this project, you should be able to navigate the DAW. Hopefully you already have been given the rundown on what a DAW is and how it functions. Maybe you've even read the first chapter of the Music Tech Made Simple textbook. Chapter 1 looks like this, and it should run you through all of the information you need to know. If you haven't seen that yet, ask your teacher. That should be able to be provided to you. By the end of this, we're also going to learn how to save, name, and upload our projects to be turned in. All right, big thing with these projects, in case you're not aware, the most important thing, in fact, is the requirements. As long as you meet these 3 requirements, then you're good. This is what you will be graded on, okay, these 3 requirements. So make sure you do them. If you don't do them, you'll probably miss out some points. So these are really simple for the first one. The first one you're already doing. If you're watching this video, you are completing the project. I'm trying to keep these videos as brief as possible to encourage you to watch them because there's really important little walkthrough information. This first one is going to have an extended intro, what I'm doing right now, just to tell you how these are going to go. But in the future, I will just open it up and say, okay, let's get started, and we'll start the project. You're going to need to download a template file for this project. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then you're going to have to make a bunch of changes to it and then turn the changed template in, which you will rename your changed template to have your name in it. Basically, you're going to download a pre-made project. You're going to do a couple of things that require you to know where some buttons are, and then you're going to be done. Easy project. So I'll walk you through each of these instructions very quickly, just so you know what's going on. First off, if you don't have the template file, let's make sure we get that pulled up. The template file looks like this. It should be a .zip archive file. If it is a .zip archive file, here's what you need to do. Open it really easy. You just double click the file and it should open, should uncompress the file, and you'll be left with this called Studio Project 1 template. Ignore the numbers, called Studio Project 1 template. And this project file should open in Logic Pro if you double click it. So I'll double click it and you'll see over here on the side, my Logic Pro will bounce. Yours is probably at the bottom. I like my dock on the side. When it's bouncing, that's how you know it's loading. So I'm going to do all these steps. I've already done them, decompress the file. The first thing I want you to do is to listen to the project, okay? So this is just a pre-made project. I'm gonna go ahead and close a couple of these windows. Just so you know, all of these buttons across the top open up different context-sensitive windows. That one lets you import clips. There's where your loops are. There's where you can keep notes. There's your list of clips that are in the project. A whole bunch of stuff you can do. But what I want you to do first is to play it back. You can do that in 2 ways. You can either press the space bar or you can click the play button. So we can listen to this. I'm not going to make you listen to it, but just to show you that the play button works. I press the play button and you should hear it. You'll notice that as your playhead, that's what this is called, as you hopefully already know. As your playhead scrolls by, it will play whatever it is landed on. So when we scroll it to here, it should play 2 things now, this fat mono bass and this modern 808 drum kit. And then as we drag it over here, it should play all of these different instruments. And then finally at the end here, or halfway through actually, it'll play a bunch of different instruments. And And then eventually it will get back to just that modern 808. That's the project right there. That's your project template. So I'll pull back up the, wrong thing. I will pull back up the project file here and we will find out what we need to do to this. It might be a good idea to have these both up at once. You can do that pretty easily just by resizing windows. Logic can only get so small, so it might have to be something like this, and then you click between them like this. Cool. All right, so begin by listening to the project. You've already done that, hopefully. If you haven't, listen to the project. It's a cool little melody. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to shorten the drum intro from 8 bars down to 4. You can do this by grabbing the right end of the region and dragging it to the left until it ends at bar 4 in the timeline, and then you're going to move everything over. Okay, so what I'm asking you to do here is, as you can see, this modern 808 drum is 8 bars long. It goes from 1 all the way to 9. At the end, it's only 4 bars, so it would be more symmetrical to have this be only 4 bars. So all I have to do to shorten a clip is grab it, drag it to where I want it to be. In this case, I want it to be 4 bars. You can see under length, it says 4, and then let go. Now, to get rid of this big gap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these tracks by just highlighting them like this, and I'm going to drag them all at once over to where the 808 ends. So now I've done the first step, right? I have shortened the drum intro from 8 bars to 4 and then drug everything else next to it. Another quick little bonus tip, if you want, you can zoom in and out horizontally and vertically with these two guys right here. Okay, so that could be helpful. I'm actually going to leave it like that just so we can see everything. Rename Modern 808 to Drums. Okay, that's pretty easy. If you come up here to the title of each track on the track header, you should be able to double click the words and then it will allow you to edit them. I'm going to simply name that Drums. You can also do that, I think, by right clicking and hitting Rename Track, or apparently pressing Shift Return. So I just double click the words usually when I want to do that. Rename the beautiful synth harp to synth left. Okay, so we'll take the one that says beautiful synth harp, just like it says, and once again, I will rename it. I'll call it synth left. Great. And then it wants me to rename beautiful synth harp to synth right. So I'll do that same thing. I'm going through all these very quickly. It might take you a little longer to find these buttons. Pan synth left all the way to the left. These little dials right here are the pan controls. And what pan is going to do is it is going to make the sound come out of either one speaker or another, or a mix of the two. So right now, if I was to show you what this sounded like, you should hear that in both of your headphones or speakers equally. But if I was to take this and pan it all the way to the right, like that, plus 63 is all the way, it should only come out of your right speaker. Right. I'm going to do the same thing with synth left and pan it all the way to the left, just like the instructions say. Delete the Endless Beauty track. There's 2 ways you can do this. I'm sorry, the Endless Beauty 2 track. You can see one of these tracks was doubled on accident. We're going to delete one of them. The 2 ways to do that are you can either right click, alternate click on the track and hit delete track, or do what I think is a simpler thing and just highlight the track and hit the delete key. Actually, that will delete the tracks. The regions on the track, and then hitting it again once it's empty will delete the track. I'll do that again. If I highlight it and I hit what's it called on this keyboard? Delete. It's called delete on your keyboard. It will delete all the regions on the tracks, and if I hit it again, it will delete the track entirely. So that's one way to do that as well. Turn the volume of the Airy Synth lead down to -2.5 decibels. So you'll see Airy Synth lead is this one right here. The volume of your tracks are these nice little horizontal meters. So if I hold down on this, you'll see that my current volume is set to unity, or 0.0 decibels or dBs. I just need to make that go down to the left until it hits -2.5 dBs. Might take you a second to get there, but you will eventually. You can also double click on that dot and manually type it in. Say I want to do the same thing to Endless Beauty, I could just double click it. It's right now at +4. I want it to be 0, so I'll hit 0.0 and then press return, and now it is at 0. So you can also manually type it in. Assign each track a unique color, then change all the regions on the track to match that color. This one's also really simple. You can right-click each track header and click this button that says Assign Track Color. And now I can choose the track color. Now what this is going to do is change just this little color bar on the left side. So like say I want my drums to be red. I want my bass to be yellow. Oh, did the wrong thing. I got to hit assign track color every time. I want my bass to be yellow. I want my left synth to be this blue. I want my right synth to still be blue, but maybe a slightly darker blue. I want Endless Beauty here to be pink. That's more of a purple. I want Airy Synth here to be, what have we not used yet? We haven't used green, but I'm going to choose a different green, like this green. Now, the reason that you might want to do that is because now when I go into the mixer, which you'll get into later, you can see these all have their own unique color, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to signify or distinguish between them. I'm sorry. So that will, it's a good habit to get into, to get them all to be different colors. And just to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, we're going to color all of the regions on the tracks to match. So here's all you have to do that. Highlight all the regions on one track. I believe, is there a, yeah, you can also just click the track and then right click them and go down to name and color. And we're going to hit show hide colors. Now anything I click here will change the color of these regions. So if I remember correctly, this is the green I used over there. Maybe it was close to that one, right? I will do the same thing with these. I don't change them to this interesting purpley pink color, whatever I ended up choosing. I'm kind of doing my best to match it. This one was this dark blue. This one was this slightly lighter blue. These were this yellow. Maybe it was this yellow. No. Let's go with that one. And then the drums were this red. Right. So now you can see I've got this nice, pretty looking spread of colors all throughout. And again, that just helps me distinguish what's what. So if I'm trying to find out what is happening in my ears, I can really easily look up and say, oh, that's these last two notes on the drum kit. Great. Duplicate the Fat Mono bass track. All of that is asking you to do is make a second copy of this track. So just right click it and hit create new track with duplicate settings, I believe is what it wants me to do. Yes, create track with duplicate settings. We're now going to mute that track. This is the mute button. Hopefully you know what the mute button does. If you don't, go back and reread that section of the chapter. Great. We're going to create a new audio track. It's pretty easy. Anytime you want to create a new track, you just press this plus button here. You can also hold down Command, Option, and N, or you can go to track, new tracks, but I think the easiest way is to hit the plus button. I want an audio track. Don't worry about any of this stuff right now. And then hit create. And there we have a new audio track. Because I'm talking into my microphone, my computer is picking that up. So yours probably won't do that immediately, though it might with your built-in microphone. Let's see what else. I want to open the loop menu and drag a loop somewhere onto this track. Now I'm already, assign this new track a color. Sorry, I skipped one. So let's assign this new track a color. This new track is going to be this weird darker blue color. I'm already seeing a little issue with this, which is that I might not be able to drag some of these loops onto it, but the loop menu is up here. We're going to have a whole project about loops. If you hit the loop browser, any of these loops with a little blue icon, this should work with, but it's basically asked you to, did I delete some stuff? No. Sorry. Yeah, basically what it is asking you to do is to drag one of these loops on there that you think kind of fits with it. So you could go through and listen to some of them. You might need to convert the track you made into stereo or hit keep track format. You can hit any of these, honestly. That's just because the loop is in a different format than the track we created. Not a huge deal. So I've dragged a new loop onto there. Maybe I'll make it a little longer. You don't have to do this. This is just for me. That actually sounds really bad, so I'm going to do that again. So this is a good thing to think about. Maybe I'll find a drum. You really don't have to think too hard about this, but I want to make sure this doesn't sound just like complete garbage. That's less bad, so let's go with that. Okay, change the tempo of the track to 85 beats per minute. That is right up here in the control bar. You see it says 110 under tempo. We're gonna make that 85. You can do that in two ways. You can, of course, double click it and type in 85 and press return. Now the tempo is 85, which is slower. Or you could have just held down on the number with your mouse and gone up and down to change the tempo. So again, I'll set that back at 85. It's a little harder to finagle. There you go. Okay, so we are done with the project. But I do want to show you a couple of other steps that are in here. Make sure you follow these. This is going to set you up for the rest of the class to be really organized. So I'm going to show you a little bit of file management here before we get out. We're very close to being done. So just do these last couple steps with me. I'm going to minimize the logic, and I'm going to kind of tuck this to the side. This is your desktop, if you didn't know. Should be a big blank thing. Maybe it has a couple things on it. You can see I've got a couple of things on mine. I want to create 2 new folders on your desktop that are going to help keep us organized throughout the semester. The first one, you do this by right-clicking your desktop and hitting New Folder. The first one we're going to call Project Files. This is where we're going to save our project files. The second one we are going to call Final Bounces. This is where we're going to bounce our files. You might not know what that word means yet, but you will, and we don't need to worry about it right now. We are now going to save our project. Okay, this is a big one. I got to make sure we understand how this works. Here is your project. To save your project, it's really simple. You hit File. You're going to hit not Save, but Save As. That's going to let you relocate where this file is. When you hit Save As, this dialog box is going to pop up. Now, fair warning, yours might look something different than this. It might be shrunken. It might look like this. If that happens, there's this little arrow you can hit, and we're going to boop that arrow down. And just to make sure I'm following all the instructions word for word, let's make sure I'm doing this correctly. Cool. One thing I would like you to do is where it says organize my project as, keep it as package. That's fine, actually. We're going to save it exactly as I've instructed in the instructions. Okay, make sure you do this. It's going to help you find your project later when it's time to turn it in. If you don't do this, you're going to start losing things, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is change the name. The name is going to be called Your Name. Oop. Something's going on with my keyboard. Give me a second to fix that. See, it doesn't let me save it anymore. Okay, that's great. Now can I save my project? Yes, cool. Little technical error there. I'm going to call it My Name with a dash. And then what does it say to name it? DAW Introduction Project. I'm just going to copy that and paste it into there. Now it's called My Name DAW Introduction Project. Now here's where I want you to save it. This is the important bit. If you say save, it's just going to save it wherever it happens to be pointing, which right now, look, it's in this big mess of folders that I have. What I want you to do is on the left-hand side, you should be able to see something that says either your computer's name, whatever the name of your computer profile is, or a desktop might say that. We need to somehow navigate to our desktop. That's where the 2 folders we just created are, okay? And I want you to save this into your project files folder. After you do this once, every time you save something, it should automatically default to the project files folder. You're going to hit save, and then boom, your project is now saved. Anytime from now on that you do anything to it and hit save, it's just going to save it right there. I'm just going to go ahead and close that project. And then I'm going to do the final step, which is to compress the project. It's important to do because some web services you may or may not use to turn these in don't play well with these logic X files, which is what this kind of file is. As you can see right here, it's a .logicx. That's what we call our project file. There's 2 kinds of files we're going to mess with in this class: project files, audio files. This is a project file. That's all we need for this one. Compressing is really easy. Right click and hit compress. And then you should get this zip archive, and that's it. That is your project. Turn that in. You've finished studio project number Sorry, you finished your DAW introduction project. So you can see this is kind of what I wanted it to look like in the end, and ours looked pretty similar to that, if I recall. Colors were a little different, but your colors might be different too. So that's the end of the first project. Ask your teacher if you have any questions about that one. Do feel free to ask. Go back, rewind, watch this again if you need to. Okay? Thank you guys so much. Have fun making music.